Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of Zombies and Coffee. This week, we are talking about Season 8, Episode 3, Monsters. Okay, I admittedly am not very well prepared for this episode, but it's not my fault, I promise. Okay, it's kind of my fault. As we all know, I ran a marathon on Sunday, so I just watched the episode. So while it's fresh in my mind, we're going to try to go over this now. But I have taken 0 notes. And this is why it's not my fault. I sat down, I pressed play, the cat sat right on my arm and on my lap. And then the dog jumped up and sat on my right arm. So, for the first 2, maybe 3 commercial breaks, I couldn't even get to the remote control to fast forward. I had to watch commercials. Watching commercials. That's the worst possible thing that can happen when you have a DVR. You don't want to watch commercials. The whole point is to fast forward through the commercials. Most people, myself included, oftentimes will not even watch a TV show live because I don't want to watch the commercials. I'd rather watch something else that's on the DVR while I record what I want to watch. That way I can zip right on through. But that didn't happen. Literally, right before Ezekiel saw the 50 cal is when the cat jumped off my lap. So let's jump into this right here, shall we? Morales. We already knew this was not going to end well for Morales. People that Rick doesn't like, they don't last long anyway, but we know that the upstairs is empty besides Rick, Morales, and Daryl. And we can see pretty much besides Rick and Jesus, everyone else is being ruthless. Everyone has taken on this they almost die persona and are just going after the saviors. Even Rick, to pretty much this point right here, even in his whole speech, if we go back to episode 1, only one man has to die, and then he pretty much tells all the lieutenants that if they don't surrender, they're gonna die after the speech. But Rick is he's ruthless. He's killing everyone. And then he hits Morales, and he realizes there's that link, that connection with the old Rick. Not the old world, because remember, he met Morales at the quarry after Glenn found him in Atlanta. So there's no link to the old world. The old world was already dead by the time Rick met Morales. But Rick was still, what did he call him? Officer friendly? Rick was still officer friendly back then. He was still wearing the uniform. He was still, I'm a police officer. There's a right, there's a wrong, and this is how we do things. Rick isn't that guy anymore, but he saw Morales and there's that link to the past. But Morales is holding a gun to Rick's head. Even though we know Daryl knows who Morales is, and we saw that he knew who Morales was when he shot him, we knew Morales was not going to make it out of this situation alive. So, if you thought Morales was going to kind of come into the fold, I'm sorry, there was no way that was going to happen. We had a tense point in the upstairs there where we thought something bad might happen. Are we going to lose Daryl? Are we going to lose Rick? I mean, for a split second I thought, oh God, this is it. They're going to shake things up. And then I thought, there's no way they're going to do this. We already knew that they saw outside on the ground that they were being called in. So if you didn't put 2 and 2 together when the radio was going off and Morales was saying, I've already called the saviors. We knew that he was calling the saviors in the courtyard. He wasn't calling other saviors to come in and help. He was calling the saviors in the courtyard to come in. So now all the Rick's group on the ground had to do was wait for the saviors to go in, and then they could also just infiltrate that courtyard area in the building, and that's what happened. Aaron came in and saved the day. But again, I was completely wrong, totally wrong as to what was going to happen and why Jesus and Morgan were fighting.
You having a little trouble?
This, I think, is probably the biggest point made in this episode. Was there's a massive divide now between the groups. Should we let the saviors live that surrender, or should we kill them all? Now, the plan in the beginning was to let the workers inside survive, but there was no clear definitive plan for the saviors that were fighting, the warriors, if you will. There was no definitive plan, and this is where we're seeing the massive divide. We already saw it between Tara and Jesus and Morgan last week when they surrendered, but we have Garrett, is that the guy's name, maybe, thrown into the mix, the long-haired guy that killed... Man, there's so many characters now that it's so hard to keep their names straight. The guy that was taunting Morgan that killed the kid from the kingdom, the kid whose gear that Morgan is wearing. That was the divide. That was where Morgan started to become crazy Morgan again. But the funny part is after the fight, he realizes that he's losing it again, which is probably why he's going to leave. I don't think he's going to completely leave and separate himself. I think he's going to go back to the kingdom and try to regroup. But this is where I was totally wrong. I had predicted the reason that Jesus and Morgan were going to be fighting was because that Jesus did intel on the building, because we saw that Ezekiel and Jerry get caught and are chained to the fence outside the Savior's compound. I believe it's to be the Savior's main compound. But we've just proven that I'm wrong a lot. So they could be chained to any fence at any of the Savior's compounds. But that was not the reason they were fighting. It is this divide. Morgan wants to kill them. Jesus wants to let them live. Now, Maggie's kind of the deciding factor. We still, at the close of the episode, do not have no definitive answer whether or not they're going to kill them or put them in the trailers out back. But now we know there's trailers out back. So, I'm still holding strong to my prediction that Gregory is going to be the person peeking out of that trailer. I still believe that Gregory is going into one of those storage trailers. Lots of bloodshed in this episode. We lost Eric. Eric being Aaron's boyfriend, the one who was walking away in the end as a zombie, not as a person going to commit zombie suicide. He turned. This is a parallel with the book. This is going to be an important point later on. Excited to see if they chase this storyline down. It's nothing that major for the actual plot of The Walking Dead. It's a bit of a side story, but it's a good one. I hope they continue with it. Now, Ezekiel's motivational speeches throughout winning all of these melees, all of these battles, it was foreshadowing. We knew something was going to happen. There's no way that they're going to just keep saying, we're winning these victories, not a single person, we're not going to die. It's The Walking Dead. People always die. So this was just more or less building and building and building to this episode's climax, which again is the exact moment that Baby Cat decided to get up off of my lap when the 50 cal unleashes upon Ezekiel's group. And they dive in front of the king. So they did protect their king, which is a throwback to Ezekiel's persona. He's such a good leader that his people were willing to die to protect him. That's like true leadership right there. So Ezekiel is like probably a better leader than Rick at this point, because Rick, people are seeing, which the reason the episode is called Monsters, in the line that Morales said is, you're a monster, Rick. Morales called Rick a monster in the beginning. And Rick, he flip-flops back and forth. He does save his people. He cares about his people. He wants to fight against, quote-unquote, the tyranny. But this kind of goes back to what I was talking about, and I believe season 1, my season opener of Zombies and Coffee for this season, that there's not that big of a divide between Negan and Rick. Negan is definitely a tyrant, but Negan and Rick are both killers. There's no which one is better than the other. Again, the people that are with them, they're kind of just with that group by luck. There was no deciding I wanted to be a savior. There was no deciding I wanted to be with Alexandria. They're just there by luck. So no one's better than the other. We want to say that Rick is because he's our hero, he's our main character, but he's killed people ruthlessly himself. So he doesn't bash their brains in to prove a point like Negan does, but he does ruthlessly kill, and we see that in this season. But Ezekiel is a true leader. He inspires his people, he protects his people, he looks out for his people, and his people are willing to die to protect him. Sure, people were probably willing to die to protect Rick. Rick is more of a warrior. He's like, he's the general that rushes into battle with his men. Where Ezekiel does the same thing, but he's definitely more people-oriented. Rick's thinking, we're going to lose some people. Okay. Ezekiel's, we're going to do this smart so we don't lose anyone. And again, this built upon the whole episode where you knew people were going to die in Ezekiel's group because it's The Walking Dead, people die. You can't keep saying over and over and over again and showing all these flawless victories and think that that's just the way it's going to go. Nope, it's Walking Dead world. People die. And again, at the end, we see how savage this war is becoming when Daryl shoots the savior that surrendered from behind the tree. After he gave him the information, Daryl shoots him and kills him. Daryl also killed Morales, even though he knew it was Morales. And Rick said, no, wait, he still killed him. And Rick kind of had that look like, he was a little upset. But then he realized we need to go and warn Ezekiel. But we are well aware before we even had to see it that Ezekiel was going to get mowed down. So let me know what you think. What do you think that I got wrong? What are some points that I missed in this episode? Because I'm trying to just remember it as I'm going through, and I know this is not well prepared, but sometimes it's a little bit more fun to just go off the cuff. So drop a comment down below. Let's start a conversation. And next week, tune in because I'm going to try to do another live stream Zombies and Coffee next week. So keep your notifications on so you are aware the next time I post a brand new video and do a live stream about Zombies and Coffee. Good night.